Hey guys, Blevins back here again for ArtiFAQ.com, and I'm here with episode number 2 of ArtiFAQs. That's spelled ArtiFAQs. Frequently asked questions about Artifact. I got your feedback from episode 1. Really appreciate that, and added a couple of videos here, little clips to go over some of those questions you had, as well as a couple of other things. But be sure to comment down below with any frequently asked questions that you would like to see in the future. Really, any suggestions are going to be super helpful in terms of stuff that you want to see. I also recently got Tabletop Simulator, so I can make these a little bit smoother starting in the next video. So let me know what you'd like to see in the next video, and I will do my best to make it. One of the most asked questions I've got in the week or so that I've been streaming artifact content is, how do improvements work? Where can I play cards and spells? The wording on the card leaves it ambiguous. I don't know how my spells work. Is this better or worse than I thought it was? So, as a general rule of thumb for all cards in Artifact, unless it says otherwise, your spell or ability or item or what have you is only going to affect the lane that the hero enabling the spell to be cast is in. So for instance, if you have a spell that says deal 2 damage to a hero and it's a black spell, you can only cast that spell in a lane if you have a black hero, and you can only cast it in that lane unless it says otherwise on the cards. There's some cards that say do 4 damage to a hero in any lane. Those obviously can be cast in any lane. If it doesn't say it, it only affects the lane that you're currently in right now. Now, the exception to this are cards called improvements. And as far as we've seen so far, all improvements have these 2 little arrows on up by their cost, and that means they can be cast in any lane. So for instance, if you have the mana and a green hero in the lane, you are able to cast the Salamandre's Favor in any lane, regardless of which lane you're in. So let's say this is lane 1 here. If you had a green hero and 4 mana here, you can cast the Salamandre's Favor into either lane 1, lane 2, or lane 3. And for a lot of these effects, it is actually beneficial to cast it in a future lane. So if you're in lane 1 and you have the ability to cast it in lane 2, because your tower has +2 mana. That is going to trigger immediately on the next lane. So even though you cast it in lane 1 and you have 4 mana, you go to lane 2, that lane's going to have 6 mana automatically. Now, you can use, there are other, the strategy behind the improvements are, differing. So it might make sense to cast it in the lane that you're in. But just know that as far as we know, all improvements and any card or improvement that has these little arrows next to it can be cast in any lane. So you do not have to just use it in the lane that you're in. You have to cast it from the lane you're in, obviously, but you can cast it into and affect and impact any lane in the game. So just keep that in mind when you're playing with improvements. We saw at PAX, we saw a lot of people misplay these because they thought they could only cast them into the lane that they're in. But a lot of people have been asking that, so I figured I would clear that up here, and hopefully that answers your questions about improvements and where cards are effective. So here, another frequently asked question that I've been getting on the stream is, how do the cooldowns for heroes and items and other creeps work? So they work a little bit differently for each type of card here. So I'll start with heroes. If we look at Jumong here, Jumong has an active ability with a 4 cooldown here. So you can see the 4 on the ability. In this case, Jumong's ability is to just draw a card. So this cooldown will start counting down at the beginning of the game. So if you put Jumong out on the first turn, you're going to see Jumong come out with their ability on a 4 cooldown right off the beginning. Now, if you put them out on the third turn, so first turn it will be at 4, Second turn, it will be at 3. Third turn, it will be down to 2 already, because this cooldown will tick down even if they're not in play. So you'll see it tick down to 2, then down to 1, and then down to 0. You'll be able to use it again, and it will go back up to 4. Now, when you use the ability, it's going to go back up to 4, and it's going to keep ticking down whether or not they're in play. So you don't need to have them in play for 4 turns. They just need to exist for 4 turns. 4 turns need to pass by. So again, a lot of these 4 turns, that's a lot longer in Artifact than it would be in something like Magic the Gathering or in Hearthstone. So keep in mind, 4 is a very long time. You're maybe using it twice at most. I think in some very long grindy games that we've seen, you might get to use it a third time, but I would not bank on using it a third or fourth time in most games that you're going to be playing. So that's how they work, how cooldowns work for heroes. For items and for creeps, they work very similarly, with the only caveat being that they for improvements, for items, and for creeps, the cooldowns don't start ticking down. They start the turn that you play them, they are activatable. So if you play a card like Steam Cannon, for instance, which is an improvement with an active cooldown of 1 turn, you can play that Steam Cannon and then immediately activate it. If you had an improvement that had an active with a 2-turn cooldown, you'd be able to play it and immediately activate it, and that number is going to go up to 2, and the number is going to go up to 1 for Steam Cannon. So they work very similarly. The creeps, improvements, and item cooldowns work very similar to heroes, except you can use them the turn that they're played. For heroes, you have to wait that many turns from the start of the game. So hope that answers your question on how cooldowns work. Make sure that you're using your cooldowns when you can. Don't forget to use them. It's very important. But if you have any more questions about it, feel free to leave a comment. Another very frequently asked question I've been getting are the difference, or is, I guess, the difference between silence, disarm, and stun. They all work kind of similarly, but they are very different indeed. So in this example, I'm going to be using the Lycan and the Jamoy here for our examples. So let's take a look at disarm first. Disarm does kind of what you might think it does. It makes it so that the opposing enemy does not attack. So in this case, if Jumong was disarmed when we went to the battle phase, these two would attack, and Jumong would not, or actually Jumong just would not attack back. Lycan would attack here to Jumong. Jumong would not attack back, would not do any damage back. So that's what disarm does. Now, when you disarm a hero, they're still able to cast spells, use active abilities, and use item abilities. They are just not doing anything they're not attacking out in the combat phase. That's what disarm is. For silence, it's almost like the inverse of that. So if Jumong was silenced here during if Jumong was silenced here, Jumong would not be able to cast spells. So if Jumong is the only blue hero in your lane and Jumong gets silenced, you can't cast blue spells in that lane anymore. You also cannot use the active abilities, and you cannot use any item abilities either for silence. Just like it works in Dota, can't use any of the abilities and can't cast spells from your hand using that hero. Now, if there's another blue hero in the lane and Jumong got silenced, you'd still be able to cast blue spells. But if Jumong is the only hero allowing you to cast spells in that lane, silence is going to stop you from being able to cast spells. Now, stun is like the combination of both silence and disarm. So, and notably for silence, during the combat phase, Jumong is still going to be attacking. Can't use abilities or items or cast spells, but will still attack during the combat phase. But with stun, you're not doing any of it. Can't use cooldowns or can't use cooldowns on abilities, can't use item abilities, can't cast spells, and also will not attack either. So stun is the ultimate disarm and the ultimate silence because it combines both. Silence makes it so they can't cast things, and disarm makes it so that you can't attack. So hopefully that answers the question about the distinction between silence, disarm, and stun. Let me know if you have any more questions on the topic. Thank you everyone for listening in to Artifacts number 2. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button below and let me know, comment below with any topics you'd like to see covered in the future videos. But again, I'm TheBlevins. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_Blevins or at twitch.tv/TheBlevins. But that is going to be it for this episode for heroesofartifact.com. Again, I'm TheBlevins, and we'll see you guys next time.